floodplain in some areas is actually higher than the adjacent areas of the town. Water sort of getting forced around that high elevation bounded area into Walton. So we're hoping that project, will be constructed in 2017. So I went over this at the beginning, but just to recap, what we'll end up with at the end of the flood analysis, we'll have an engineering analysis that's scientifically based and defensible. We'll have the benefit cost analysis to tell us which scenarios are cost effective and which ones aren't. We'll have concepts for those flood mitigation scenarios, whether it's a bridge replacement or a floodplain. We'll provide some cost estimates. We'll identify some funding sources. And what we end up with is the town now has a kind of a blueprint for flood mitigation, some of which could be implemented in the near term and others further down the road when funding or circumstances are right. And what we'll end up with is something that the town could use. It's feasible, cost effective, and it's what the citizens want, and that's why we have these public meetings. We don't want to, the intention here is not to impose anything on anyone. It's something that the community can agree to move forward on. Now this is just a shot of the project area, and I've got it broken down into two halves. The upstream half, this is where Fox Hollow comes in. So everybody, if you're more interested in this upstream area, so the tributary here, Esopus Creek, Fox Hollow, if you're upstream of that area, we're going to have one set of maps for that upstream area. The other set of maps is Fox Hollow and downstream will be a second set of maps. And Vernon and I are just going to split up. And we would love to have your input on, as we described, where flooding occurred, what kind of damages you've observed, where the flow paths of the water were, what kind of depths of flooding. That type of information is so valuable to us. So let me just advance to this next slide here and see if anybody has any kind of general questions. And then we could break out the maps and gather around and grab some chocolate and see what people have to tell us.
Now with the Mount Jumper and Phoenicia, did you have a problem with the city over their water and the DEC about touching the creek?
Well, anything that would be proposed in the creek, like a enhanced floodplain or anything like that, would certainly require permits from the DEC.
Right.
Yeah, that we'd have to go through that process. But we've been able to build those types of floodplains in other areas. It's a permitting process.
We have a dike behind our properties running from where the Bushnellville comes in to roughly the new bridge, the new Route 28 bridge.
Right. Yep.
Now that dike is, at one time it's like 50 feet into the creek. It's about 10 feet from the creek now. That's a real concern to us. Irene, it blew out.
Yeah.
And that area has a major problem.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly the type of information we want to get from you.
The water table seems to be a big issue for us too. Once the creek gets high, the water has no place to go, and it just backs up into our lawns, into the houses, into the basements. The creek's not deep enough anymore.
Okay. Yeah, good.
So if we are able to affect positive results about altering the floodplain, does that mean we can move the FEMA maps favorably?
That's down the road. If we identify a project that reduced flooding, and the project got built, then yes, they would. The town would need to go through a process called a letter of map revision. It's a formal process with FEMA where they change those lines.
And so that improves people's insurance rates.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And that's, ideally you were in the floodplain and now you're not anymore. That'd be nice. But even if you are in the floodplain, but you used to be flooded by 3 feet of water and now you get flooded by a foot of water, it's sometimes you're not able to eliminate flooding, but you're able to reduce it and shift that line or reduce the flooding depths. So, yeah. But yeah, the project gets built, the town should go through that process to get it remapped. Yeah.
Again, I'll just add that, again, I'll reiterate, if people weren't able to make it to the meeting tonight, we ask that you send an email, if you can send photos, descriptions of what you saw at your house, so we can relay it to the engineers and give them more information. Mark, to your comment about, reducing the flood elevation, yeah, we would have to apply for a LOMR, letter of map revision to FEMA. Now, when they were creating the original map, we actually pinpointed some areas, being that during the emergency itself, during Irene, we were relocated to the fire department in Shandaken. So seeing what was going on in the ground there, we argued with the then engineers who designed the map product, saying the water couldn't go there. It's just not possible. It's more elevated than the rest of the area there. We saw it inundate Bob Jones' area. We saw it inundate behind on the south side of 28. They went back and remodeled it and actually changed that map, pulling away about 30 structures out of the floodplain. So saving maybe 30 people from having to get flood insurance with the newest map that we have right now. So it can be effective. We're hoping, again, with Route 28 and Route 42 bridge, as Mark said, that was recently redone. We haven't run those models specific yet to see what their effects are on the floodplain. We're assuming that will find some kind of reduction in the floodplain in that area, but we're hoping that we can further that cause and, again, get more people out of the floodplain, or at least reduce the elevation to which they may have to elevate their homes. So if anybody at home has, if you want to send it, shandakensupervisor@yahoo.com, and I can forward it to MMI, and again, just give us detailed pictures where it was, where it occurred, and that's what they're going to get into right now, and we're going to put stickies all over maps and say this is what went wrong here.
Yeah.
After each flood, we notice that many trees fall into the creek, and they remain there for a long time. Are they obstructions or are they not?
Well, they can be. It kind of depends on if they clog a bridge opening, for example. That could create a real problem. Sorry?
Eventually they will.
Yeah.
Some of them anyway.
Yeah.
But that's what happened in Mount Trumper.
Right.
Yeah. Certainly that's a problem we hear about with debris jams at bridges. That could really, even if the bridge, when the opening's clean, it's able to pass the flood, but when logs get jammed up on there and clog the bridge, then that bridge can't pass those flows. And actually, Rob mentioned sending pictures or collecting observations. If we're able to model that, we're able to go into the model and say, here's the bridge, but let's, based on your observations during the flood, it was 30% blocked by some logs. We're able to block that bridge and see what happens to the flooding. So that's helpful information for us to have.
And if you were to clear out the trees between the bridges, because I've seen some trees that have laid there for years, there must be an obstruction as well. Eventually they will wind up blocking the bridges.
Yeah, in some cases, not even necessarily removing them from the stream, but cutting them up in place and so that they won't jam up on the bridge.
Yeah.
Is something that can be done, if that's a problem. Yeah, Aaron.
Vernon pointed out that Route 28 bridge had 3 piers, and now has 1 pier, and I think that's probably, and it's got more of an arch to it, and I think that might be some of the direction that, that bridges are being built in the future, is recognizing that in these streams, the debris is a big issue.
More than likely would be improved.
Yeah.
But the risk still remains. But it's worth looking into.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes, you want a stable stream channel too, because sometimes, and this could result from dredging. People deepen the creek and the banks collapse and trees go in. And that's why, we've modeled dredging. Dredging could be helpful in certain situations, like where debris is clogging a bridge or something, but getting in and cleaning out the creek could lead to bigger problems. It could actually increase flooding in some cases, and then your banks become unstable, and you could have trees going in, and so it's sometimes proposed a solution, but it often is not. So,
Six and one half dozen the other, as you say.
yeah.
Can we look at the maps?
Yeah, absolutely.
If someone wants a map revision, does the homeowner have to pay for it?
Well, a letter of map revision would be an entire redo of the map for a whole area. It's different, it's a different process for a specific landowner. Like if you were building a home, or you had a home that was mapped in the floodplain, but it's elevated high up enough so that you don't need to buy flood insurance. That's a different process. You'd like do an elevation certificate to prove that you're at an adequate elevation. An overall map revision would be not funded by individuals. It would be, that would be something the town would take on and have to.
And to further that, if your property is in the floodplain and you believe your home is not threatened by the flood, but your mortgage lender is telling you you have to have flood insurance,
Right.
the only option you have is to change lenders. It's that hard. Banks can just dictate their own policy, and even though the flood insurance doesn't cover anything but structure, they can still say, it doesn't matter to us, you've got a piece of property that's, maybe it's the side corner of your property, nowhere near your house, they can still mandate that you get flood insurance. Now, the only option again is to go get an elevation certificate done by a surveyor to show that you're out of the floodplain, which would minimize your flood insurance cost. But if the lender is insisting that you do that, then there's no other way around it. You can't
Do you
do
know
a
what
map
that
on
costs?
I think there's anywhere from $6 to $8, $600 to $800, excuse me, for doing that. So.
There is a letter of map amendment out as shown. In some special cases where it's very evident with aerial photos and the flood boundary, that you can get a letter from FEMA providing certain evidence to them that your house is not in the floodplain.
Like if it didn't take on water with Irene, then it's all right?
Not necessarily, because Irene was not the 100-year flood, so you can't necessarily use past history to say that. But if you use the current maps and you show that here is my house, here is the line for the floodplain, then you can present that to FEMA and get a letter of how it's shown. And that you can get to. Sometimes they will accept.
And then the third one goes to.
There are some other,
Yeah, you take that next one, and I'll take the bottom one.
Dr. Norton, if you want to
Take the next one. Yeah, done.
But you know,
Yeah, I've got the
most people at DEC that can answer that question for you. So there are options. Sometimes the banks, like Rob says, they can just be stubborn and just say no. Then you go to a different one.
What if you already have a mortgage? I just got this email today telling me that I must get flood insurance, or they're gonna get it in person.
So it's called forced placement, right? So you need to then start looking at the maps and see, is your house shown in the floodplain, your actual structure?
Who's that letter from, your mortgage lender?
From the mortgage, from the bank.
From the bank.
Because the maps just got adopted.
If it's forced place, it's usually a lot more money than if you went.
Right, so if you get it yourself, it'll be a lot cheaper than if your bank buys it for you.
Oh, yeah.
Right, so that's, if nothing else is different, at least that one you got.
How recent are these?
The photos are from 2013. They're in a leaf-off condition from 2013. The lines on them are the most recent FEMA models that we've set up and run, and they do include the new bridge replacements. So they're kind of as new as you can get.
So the urban maps are pre-Irene, right?
No, they're post.
No.
2013, Irene is 2011. Sorry.
The
So
photos.
So the new course of the creek should be on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope. It's over there.
So, Vernon,
Those are upstream, that's Bushnellsville?
yeah, this is the Bushnellsville, sort of upstream of Fox Hollow.
This is Fox Hollow and below on this, over here.
Let me just move a few things out of the way.
So here's Bushnellville.
This is Broad Street.
So that's not,
You want numbers or letters?
Any numbers.
would that change the flood?
Yeah, this is Broad Street. This is your house right here?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Before the new bridge, it was a different flood.
Yellow stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Lower this a little
Okay, so this is what.
it did, it's not, no one's gone and done a map review. That's just in our model. FEMA would have to go. It could, yeah, probably not what we're doing for the real change, because we did a bigger project.
Right here?
It tends to be, it depends on how big of a constriction the bridge is. When you widen it, it reduces flooding upstream of the bridge, but sometimes a lot, sometimes a little. Just worry myself, because I know where that dike is.
Here's the bridge.
Yeah, you can see it like there's a sign here.
This is the new bridge right here. You can actually see. So I mean, this dike is significantly bigger than the rest. And you can actually see as people see the fish
Your house?
It has nothing to do with straight line down.
you know, this is the so what we've got now, which is
Oh, that's right, yeah. I was saying, Bob, this week is more running right along this. Yeah.
over here.
Sorry, your name was Keith. Yeah, I can take it here.
Yeah, when we do that, we were standing on top of the dike. Well, this is the open you can see.
Very high.
Right there? Through right there.
Right. And then it's starting to.
Once it's filled in. So that's all. So you've got the new bed. So when you see this one is supposed to go, you see it. You see the water. And it's taken away 40 feet down. It's taken away every time.